The final week of the fantasy baseball season is here, and Drake Baldwin and Ha-Seong Kim lead the charge of the 10 names I'm going to talk about that are going to help you win your fantasy baseball championship on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominick Martino. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm wide and solo today. And if you are watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It's going to subscribe you to the channel and give you notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things, once again, please make sure you're subscribed. And if you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you do that for us as well. And as we head into the off season, join Matt and I on, the Insider's Track, where, we have a lot of fun stuff planned, like giveaways. We're going to talk strategy when it comes to dynasty and keeper leagues, stuff like that. And, Matt and I bring over, 40 years of fantasy baseball knowledge to the table. So, there's plenty of reasons to join us on that Insider's Track. The link is in the bio if you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. And this episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Go to 5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. And all right, guys, let's get into it. I know mostly everyone should be wrapped up by now with your fantasy baseball leagues. So if you've won a fantasy baseball championship, sound off, let everyone know in the comments if Matt and I have helped you at all, if this podcast has brought anything significant to the table to help you guys out. We'd love to hear about those fantasy baseball championships. And even if we haven't helped you at all, you still won, sound off in the comments below. It's still great to hear about it. But if you do play till the final day of the season, which, hey, listen, some of us do. I still got a couple of leagues where I'm alive, where I got to play out to the last day. And I know you guys do too. So I still have 10 names for you on today's episode that you need to add to your team that can give you a little boost going into the final Sunday of the season, right? And let's get things started. We're going over to Atlanta for this one. We're going to talk some Atlanta Braves, and let's start with their catcher, Drake Baldwin. Baldwin having a breakout season, putting up really, really solid numbers over his first real go out of it here, in the MLB. Through 117 games played, Baldwin's hitting .271 with 51 runs, 18 homers, and 75 RBIs. And he's been real hot of late. You looking back since September 15th, where he went 3 for 5 with a homer, 4 RBIs. Struggled a little bit in a doubleheader on September 16th, but bounced back nicely on September 17th with a 2 for 5 game with 2 runs and an RBI. On September 19th, he homered again with a 3 RBI game, 2 for 4. Baldwin again homered on September 20th with 2 RBIs in that game. And on September 21st, Baldwin went 2 for 4 with a run and a homer. He gets a nice stretch here coming up, this final week of the season. He gets the Washington Nationals, which, the pitching isn't really, blowing anybody away. And then I'm just double checking the matchup after that for, Baldwin and those Atlanta Braves. It's Pittsburgh. Besides Paul Skeens, and listen, Bubba Chandler's been, pretty solid too so far. Not really too much to worry about there, and I don't even know if Skeens is going to pitch towards the end of the season. We'll see if that comes to fruition or not. But other than that, Drake Baldwin, love what he's done so far this year. I think he's going to slide in as a top 12 catcher for me going into 2026. Looks like it, even though he had a really great year at catcher, I think Baldwin's just, at age 24, on the right track here, hits the ball really hard, does a lot of good things, even when it comes to underlying stats like ex-batting average, 284, which is, where the batting average is, expected to be rather than where it is. It's underlying stat, ex-slug looks good. Power indicator there, hits the ball really hard. Like I said earlier, gets great exit velocities, swings the bat really well. Gets great bat speed, doesn't whiff a lot, doesn't strike out a lot. He just does a lot of great stuff coming from the catcher position. And, if he can give you 25 home runs next year with a 275 batting average and, maybe 80 RBIs with 60 runs, think that's definitely going to be a top 12 catcher for me. Drake Baldwin's 33% owned on Yahoo, and there's no reason not to go out there and snag him now. He's been just really, really solid this year, and I love what the kid brings to the table, from a fantasy standpoint. But let's move on to this next guy. Actually, his teammate. Let's talk about Ha-Seong Kim. Now, Ha-Seong Kim has been, solid since going over there to Atlanta. And we need to talk about it. We definitely do need to talk about it here because Kim has just been really, really good, especially over those last 2 weeks, right? Let's talk about what Kim's been doing over those last 2 weeks. 10 runs, a homer, 6 RBIs, 304 batting average. And that's good for, 14 hits or 46 at-bats. I think we got to go out there and add him. He has second and short eligibility on Yahoo. He homered in his last game on September 21st, homered on September 19th. Has been a runs machine, as I mentioned, of late. Has had a run in every single game dating back to September 14th. He's been on a nice little hit streak since September 13th, which is about almost 10 games there for Ha-Seong Kim. I think we just need to go out there and take advantage. 11% owned on Yahoo. He's out, and pretty much anyone who's listening right now could probably go out there and add him. He's got power. He's got speed. He's been hitting 6th in this Braves lineup, which is, it's a good lineup for, production, for the most part. And I like I said, it's just juice the orange kind of, time of year. We're just getting any of the hot bats in our lineup. We're churning and burning. In Dynasty and Keeper League formats, we know we're not just dropping anybody that we have on our teams, but in redraft, if they're not producing right now, honestly, I don't care if they were your number one pick. If they're just not getting it done at this point in time, it's feel free to drop them because you're not playing with this lineup again next year. So you got to add the Drake Baldwins, the Ha-Seong Kims. Just go out there and get them. Let's sneak one more bat in before we take a little break, and let's talk Spencer Steer of those Cincinnati Reds. Another veteran who's just swinging a hot bat at the moment. Steer on the season, decent numbers, nothing super sexy. 139 games played for Steer, 243 batting average, 5 runs, 21 homers, 74 RBIs, and 7 steals. He's 44% owned on Yahoo. On September 17th, he went when he returned from a little bit of an injury thing there. He went 3 for 4 with a homer, 5 RBIs. He had a multi-home run game, Spencer Steer did, with 2 home runs, 3 RBIs on September 19th. Homered in the game after that on September 20th. And he's going to be home in, I don't know if it's at the rest of the season, at least in the next series against Pittsburgh. They'll be home. Then they do go to Milwaukee after that, but hey, at least those next 3 games, like I said, Pittsburgh, not a scary rotation unless he gets Skeens. Other than that, Great American Small Park, Steer's been hitting cleanup, or he's actually moving around a little bit. He had cleanup in the last game, hit 2nd in the game before that, hit 5th in the game before that, hit 6th in the game before that, hit 7th in the game before that. So he's been all over this Reds lineup, but another good lineup for production on any given night when it comes to fantasy baseball. So I'd go out there and add a veteran like Steer, who we know while he's hot can get it done. 21 homers on the year and 7 steals. So there's a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. 74 RBIs isn't nothing to slouch at either. So I really think that, Steer is just a guy. We go out there, add him. We put him in our lineup for these next 3 games of Pittsburgh. If he's hot still, even those last 3 games in Milwaukee, I wouldn't mind having him in my lineup. But before we move on and talk about names like Christian Moore, Dylan Cruz, and then we move into the next portion of this episode where we get into pitching, those names and more coming up next. And all right, guys, I need to talk to you about my friends over at 5 Hour Energy, right? Because listen, Caffeine just got one of their biggest flavor upgrades in history. 5-hour energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins, and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it most. I always reach for my favorite flavor, which of course is grape, because it's refreshing and gives me that quick lift before a busy day. And I've also been eyeing, one of those new flavors, that limited holiday pumpkin spice flavor. It sounds like that perfect next one for me, honestly. I love how fast it kicks in, and it's sugar-free as well, so I don't have to worry about that crashing later. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine flavor an upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in-store and online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. And all right, guys, let me talk to you about one more of my friends over at ZipX. This episode is brought to you by ZipX Toothpicks. Whether you're looking for nicotine satisfaction or an energy boost, ZipX has you covered with their nicotine and caffeine-infused toothpicks. For nicotine users, ZipX provides a discreet way to satisfy cravings in the hand-to-mouth habit without vaping or smoking. ZipX can be a helpful tool as you work to reduce your dependence on vaping, and it's available in 6 great flavors with 2 milligram and 3 milligram nicotine options. And if you need energy without the crash, their caffeine toothpicks are an absolute game changer. I've used the caffeine toothpicks before, big meetings and long drives. They help give me energy without the jitters. And with their flavors like peppermint and watermelon ice, they actually taste really great. So go to zipxtoothpicks.com and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $10 off your first or 10% off your first order. Must be 21 or older to use and order. Warning, nicotine is an addictive chemical. That's zipxtoothpicks.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB, locked on. Zip more, smoke less with ZipX Toothpicks. And all right, guys, just want to mention it one more time. With the offseason right around the corner, Matt and I want you on the Insider's Track, right? With our everydayers and new listeners being, joining up every day, and the Insider's Track just becoming like a big, just a group of us fantasy baseball fanatics talking about fantasy baseball all the time. What we're doing in Dynasty and Keeper Leagues, talking about prospects. We're just talking about the 2026 outlook. So if you're a fantasy baseball fanatic and you just can't get enough and you just want to talk fantasy baseball 24/7, you talk about all your Dynasty and Keeper teams and what you're doing about strategy for next year. Even I have some rankings, rough draft rankings. If you're interested in those, I'll send those out. Just ask for them on, the Insider's Track, where the link is in the bio wherever you're listening, watching. And it's available on any of our social media platforms. So if you're interested in any of that, click on the link, join up today. We're always there for you 24/7. And let's keep things going, guys. That final week of the season, man, it's just always so bittersweet this time of year when you're winning fantasy baseball championships, you're losing fantasy baseball championships. It's a really tough time of year, but you still got to be in it to win it. And I got a great name in Christian Moore, who I want to talk to you guys about, right? Christian Moore was, a higher end prospect for, Los Angeles Angels, got the call earlier this year. He's been a mixed bag so far, but you know what? He's been picking it up of late. And that's why I want to talk about him. Over the last week, Christian Moore has been hitting really well. 6 for 21, which is a good for a 286 batting average with 3 runs, 3 homers, 4 RBIs, and 2 steals. And Christian Moore has second base eligibility on Yahoo. He did take a little bit of advantage in Coors, homer, and had had a steal in, that series, but has still been just good overall, dating back to September 14th, homered in back-to-back games on the 14th and 16th. Had a nice little 2-for-3 game against Milwaukee on September 18th. Stole a bag in, that game as well. In Colorado on September 19th, he went Christian Moore at 1 for 4 with a homer, 2 RBI. Stole a base on September 20th in that game against Colorado. Overall, on the year for Christian Moore, it's been 46 games played, a 204 batting average, 18 runs, 7 homers, 16 RBIs, 2 steals, and he's only 3% owned on Yahoo. So a little bit of a deeper cut here. I know second base is a little bit of a tougher position to fill, usually all the time. Christian Moore, though, is really fast. Age 22, could go out there and steal some bases. Hasn't really shown much of that yet, but he's in the 75th percentile of sprint speed so far, in his 46 games in the bigs. I think even that batting average could be better, and he's got some pop in that bat, too. So, just with a guy like, Christian Moore, I think we go out and add him. They go up, the Angels go up against Kansas City, which pitching is all right. Their pitching isn't too bad. The Cole Reagans is back too, so that definitely makes that rotation look better. And then Houston, I think it's manageable. They're at home. And Christian Moore has been hitting 6th in this lineup. The Angels haven't been great, but I think there's some upside in this pickup, especially for you deeper league guys. I just wanted to try and make sure I had everybody covered on this episode. But let's keep things moving. Let's go on to this last bat. It's Dylan Cruz of those Washington Nationals. And, the bat's picking up of late. He's somebody that I kind of want to see where we're able to draft Dylan Cruz next year, because he was former, top 3, I think even top prospect in some circles as little as a year or two ago. And Dylan Cruz is hitting .318 over the last week with 2 steals, 4 runs, and RBI, no homers. He's 40% owned on Yahoo. He's been hitting 2nd in this Nationals lineup he was moved to in the last game that they played. So with Dylan Cruz heating up, the prospect pedigree, I think there's still hope here. I think we can add him this last week of the season. The Nationals, who do they go up against? They're at Atlanta. So, there's some good pitchers in that rotation. That's going to be a little bit tougher for Cruz, but then they get the White Sox in the final series of the season, and the pitching there is abysmal. So I think that's a situation Dylan Cruz could take advantage of. But Dylan Cruz, even if you're listening and you don't necessarily pick him up, he's named to remember for next year, because I think Dylan Cruz is just somebody that, is really good. And I think he still has a chance to, I don't want to say live up to the hype that he once had, but I think he could be like look at Joe Adell this year. His 30 home runs was useful for fantasy baseball. I think there's a world where Dylan Cruz winds up being useful for what we do, but I'm not necessarily relying on him, being an absolute breakout candidate next year. So I'm not gonna overdraft him. Somebody like Matt, my buddy, might disagree with me, but I'm not one of the biggest Dylan Cruz guys out there, but I still think there's a world where he's useful. So I'm not giving up on him either, and I'm not afraid to pick him up here at the end of the season and kind of just see where it could take me. So with Dylan Cruz, 40% owned on Yahoo, obviously outfield eligible, and he's been heating up of late. But let's get into the, the pitcher side of things here. And let's talk about Slade Cecconi of those Cleveland Guardians. I really just want to talk about him. He pitched great in his last outing. It was actually, I believe, on Saturday against the Minnesota Twins. And this kid's been really good of late. 7 innings in this last outing, a win, 8 strikeouts, no earned runs, a 0.43 whip. In the White Sox before that, Slade went 5.2 innings, 4 strikeouts, couple earned runs, 0.71 whip. The outing before that, Big Slade went 8 innings against Kansas City. That was on September 8th. Got the win, 3 strikeouts, no earned runs, 0.5 whip. So Cecconi's been really good over his last 3 starts. And going into the last week of the season, I think it's going to be Detroit. But let me just double check. No, it actually might be Texas. And Texas is an interesting team. They've been, kind of an up and down season this year. But of late, they have been struggling. So 3-7 in their last 10 for Texas. I think it's an outing that Cecconi can go out there and be very productive. I do want to give also a side note. I know we've been talking about that, Cleveland rotation a lot of late, but shout out to Parker Messick and why am I blanking on the other kid's name right now in that Cleveland rotation that has been pitching really well of late too. And even Tanner Bybee has turned, things around in his last couple of starts. If he's out there, I don't think he's a little bit more highly owned. But if Parker Messick or Slade Cecconi are out there in your leagues, I'd go out there and snag them, specifically Cecconi, who I do like a lot. Joey Cantillo was the other kid I was thinking of. Joey Cantillo. I think they really got something in those three young pitchers. But before I move on and we talk about Ian Seymour, Stephen Kolek, and somebody who we've talked about of late, Keegan Aiken as well. Quick break, and then I will be right back with those names and all right, guys. Got to talk to you about my friends over at Nutrafol. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that actually works. There's so many products out there, and it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That's why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. And it's not just all hype either. The supplement is clinically tested that targets the root cause of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach, whether you're out at work or, just with your friends, having a good time, or even just getting ready in the morning. Nutrafol gives you more confidence in your daily routine. See thicker, stronger hair and less shedding in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol's offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code Locked On MLB. And once again, you're going to do all of this on Nutrafol.com and use my promo code Locked On MLB. And all right, guys, one more of my friends I need to talk to you about, and it's Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even, what they're worth. Whether it's 401ks, priorities, or investments, and that's when you don't have the full picture. Just don't have the full picture of what's going on, right? You can end up leaving money on the table, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface. On your laptop or your phone, Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off, organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting, for you, makes it real easy. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data, visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending all in one place. You're going to get control of your money. It's going to be real easy without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can identify, that you aren't saving as much as you thought. Monarch helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com using my promo code LOCKEDONMLB. All right, guys, let's take this thing home, and hopefully you guys get some fantasy baseball championships out of this, right? We're going to talk about Ian Seymour again. Talked about him a couple of weeks ago, and honestly, I think the week I talked about him, he actually had a bad start. I'm going to fact check myself here because, I used him. Yeah, it was against the White Sox. And it was on September 11th. That outing against the White Sox was really no good. 5.1 innings, 5 strikeouts, 3 earned runs, 1.31 whip. But bounced back really nicely, even Seymour did on the 17th of September. 7 innings, got the win, 3 strikeouts, no earned runs, 0.7 whip in that one. And Toronto's been really good. Ian Seymour on the year started 4 games, but has come out of the pen, a few times as well. Has 4 wins, a 2.54 ERA, a 1.05 whip, 49 innings pitched, 55 strikeouts, and he's going to be at Baltimore on Tuesday. He's only 22% owned on Yahoo, and I think that's a great start for him. Baltimore hasn't really been, too great this season, and I think it's a matchup where, Seymour can go out and take advantage. Baltimore specifically 73 and 83 on the year, 4 and 6 in their last 10. And, I think Ian Seymour can just go out there and give you a decent start. It might not be big strikeouts, but, the kid has Pretty good stuff. He gets, a lot of good whiffs, gets, not really hit too hard. Wish he got a little bit more ground balls, but you know what? He's still getting the job done. He leads with that nice changeup where batters are hitting 179 against it on the year. His four-seam fastball only sits at about 92 on average, but still gets great results because it has good movement, at a 170 batting average against. Wish the cutter and the sweeper were a little bit better, especially the cutter that he throws 21% of the time. It gets hit at a 265 clip. But, he still also does have that, sinker in his bag that, he does only throw 5% of the time, but it gets hit at a 167 clip. So 5-pitch mix here for Seymour where 3 of the pitches are getting great results. So I think we can ride him into his last start of the season on Tuesday, and I think Seymour will be solid in that one. But let's keep things pushing. Let's talk about Stephen Kolek. I believe he started the year with the Marlins, if I'm not mistaken, and now not the Marlins, I'm sorry, the Padres, if I am not mistaken on that one. Let's chat. Yeah, it was the Padres, right? Yes, it was. Yep, so Kolek did start the year with the Padres, had some use. He had some really useful starts at the beginning of the year, but now he's over in Kansas City. And the thing with Kolek is like, okay, we know what the Kansas City Royals do. They try and identify pitchers that, like what they did with Cole Reagans last year, just snuck him out from the Rangers for, really cheap and developed him into one of the better pitchers in baseball. I don't think the same thing happens here with Kolek, but in a very interesting turn of events in his last 4 starts that have come with the Royals, Kolek is a 1.67 ERA, 27 innings, 19 strikeouts, only 3 walks over that time, has an 0.66 whip. So Kolek's been on fire. He gets the Angels on Wednesday. That's basically a cupcake matchup. So Kolek is a must-add for me anywhere, every league where you can go out there and add a starting pitcher. I'm literally going to be adding him after this episode in, a couple of leagues I'm playing in next week, just so he was available there. So that's a nice little sneaky ad for myself, too. I practice what I preach. There's not really much else to say there besides he might be somebody, Stephen Kolek is somebody I might be looking at next year, like my last pick of the draft kind of move, or just basically if he moves up a little bit more than that, I'd still like to take him because it's just a great year in general with a 106 innings pitched, 75 strikeouts, 3.54 ERA, and a 1.14 whip for Stephen Kolek of those Kansas City Royals. Now he's an absolutely must add at 14% owned on Yahoo. Let's move on to somebody I've been talking about a lot. I feel like he might have even been on the last episode, we talked about, but it's Keegan Akin once again of those Baltimore Orioles. Did get a blown save on September 21st here, Sunday as I'm recording, but also had a save on the 19th, had a save on the 17th, and had a save on the 16th. All of those were no earned run saves. So on the year for Keegan Akin, I don't think this is including today's game, but it's a 3.10 ERA, 1.34 whip, 61 innings, 58 strikeouts, 4 wins. Has a handful of saves here at the end of the season for Baltimore. Just if you need to throw a dart for saves this week, they play Tampa. And let's see who they get in their final series. At least they might want to play spoiler, here for Tampa, at least Baltimore and the Yankees. So it's divisional stuff. So they could try and play spoiler, try and take some wins away from their divisional opponents. Teams got to have something fun to do here at the end of the season. So Keegan Akin, if you need saves, probably one of those last guys you can snag out there for saves. And then let's talk about Bryce Elder of those Atlanta Braves. He's been pretty solid over the last month. It's been 37 innings for Elder over the last month, 34 strikeouts, 3 wins, a 2.63 ERA, a 1.01 whip. And he gets the Nationals on Wednesday. The Nationals are not a scary lineup. Dylan Cruz, like we talked about earlier, has been a little bit better of late. Abrams, James Wood, haven't been the stellar down the stretch. So not really too worried about that. And Bryce Elder has just been pretty solid down the stretch this season. If we look back to, even August on for, Elder, it's been a really good go of it. He's only had 1, 2, 3 bad starts and about 6 good ones. So I'm going to just trust Elder down the stretch here. In his last start at Detroit, it was 7 innings, a win, 6 strikeouts, 1 earned run, and an 0.7 whip in that one for Elder. So let's trust him this Wednesday going into Washington. But guys, that is all for today. And I know I've been saying it almost every episode, but I'm going to be corny this last week and just say, hey, listen, just shout out to our everyday new listeners making Locked On Fantasy Baseball first listen, each and every day. And it's awesome that Matt and I can do this with you guys. Just talk fantasy baseball, go through season by season, and just help you guys gain more knowledge and win these fantasy baseball championships and just hear about, the success you guys had. That's what it's all about for Matt and I. Just really helping you guys grow and doing this. And it's really so much fun, guys. So thank you all for, just tuning in and, making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. But guys, until next time, see ya.